Okay, so let's look at disorders or diseases that have multiple genes involved. And definitely these are more common, right? So single gene defects that we spoke about, chromosomal um, additions or deletions such as monosomy or trisomy, sure, they exist, but these are more common, that there's multiple genes involved um, in the genome that are causing these conditions. Okay, so cleft lip or cleft palate. These these are not single gene defects. These these conditions are from a variety of genes on multiple different chromosomes. Clubfoot, congenital hip dislocation, congenital heart disease, uh, urinary tract malformations. Some people, for example, are born with two ureters on each side. So there's all kinds of malformations that are from a multitude of genes on many different chromosomes. And some of these genetic uh, factors can declare themselves later in life, right? So coronary artery disease definitely has a genetic component. Diabetes is more common if you have a sibling or a parent that has type 1 diabetes. Hypertension is more common. It runs through families. A variety of different cancers. So, for example, breast cancer can be genetic. Ovarian cancer can be genetic. So there's all kinds of cancers that patients get that then their offspring have a higher chance of acquiring. And mental illnesses is another example, such as bipolar uh, disorder, depression, anxiety. They don't come from one gene on one chromosome. They come from a multitude of genes on many chromosomes. Okay? Okay, so we won't spend too much time on this slide. We've kind of spoken about this through the whole module. So birth defects, okay, so abnormalities can be of body structure, right? So, okay, Down syndrome, they're born with a short stature, or Turner syndrome, typically a short stature. Marfan's, tall stature. Klinefelter's, tall stature, right? The function, so the functioning of different organs can be abnormal, such as congenital heart disease in patients with Down syndrome. Metabolic problems, so PKU is an absence of the breakdown of phenylalanine, so it can result in enzyme deficiencies. And congenital means that it's present at birth, right? That's really what the term congenital means. That the defect is presenting itself at birth. And now, what can they be due to? Well, genetic mutations that we've spent this module talking about, or environmental factors during pregnancy. Um, Such as a multitude of teratogens, right? So alcohol, cigarettes, all kinds of potential teratogens that harm the fetus, and that spans to all kinds of infections that the mother can get, right? So toxoplasmosis, rubella, cytomegalovirus, all kinds of teratogens that harm fetal development. Okay, so here's some environmental teratogens, right? So, um, uh, what happens with environmental teratogens? Well, could be in someone in drugs that someone is taking, or overall nutrition um, of the mother. Uh, Diabetes in the mother can result in all kinds of defects of the fetus. In particular, the fetuses are typically very large. Okay, Smoking is a teratogen, alcohol, radiation. So we're very careful with pregnant women that are going for imaging tests that give off radiation, such as X-rays, CAT scans that give off radiation, right? Because they're teratogenic. And infectious diseases that I just mentioned, rubella, toxoplasmosis, cytomegalovirus. So a lot of infectious agents can be teratogenic to the developing embryo or the fetus, okay? And definitely the most vulnerable time is basically from the time that the fetus is formed, and typically the first 2 months, right? A lot of organs are developing in that time frame, the beginning of pregnancy into up to 60 days, okay? Many of the, so the nervous system, the cardiac system, respiratory, all these systems are developing. So it makes sense that a teratogen is going to have a much bigger effect when organs are developing compared to third trimester, where the organs, they've all developed, but now what's happening is that they're growing. All right, so the heart's getting bigger, the lungs are developing, but they're fully formed. The nervous system is has fully developed. Now there's just growth of it. Okay, so remember that teratogens tend to harm the fetus in the early part of pregnancy. Okay, so I'm not going to say too much about this slide. I think it's self-explanatory, and I've also mentioned some of these already. The radiation, for example, from tests that we do, such as CAT scans, chemicals that can be found in food products, drugs. Well, that drug classification that we use is very important because it gives us an idea of the potential for harm to the fetus, right? So that pregnancy classification. Alcohol can lead to fetal alcohol syndrome. So alcohol is a small molecule that easily crosses the placenta at any stage in pregnancy, and it can lead to poor development of the brain, global cognitive delay. So really it's harmful right throughout pregnancy because it so easily gets through to the fetus from the placenta. Okay. Okay, just an example of a vitamin that we use to prevent a neurological defect, right? So neural tube defects, such as spina bifida, we now know that if folic acid is taken during conception and during the early part of embryonic development and fetal development, it definitely reduces the chance of this neural tube defect from occurring. Okay, so that's why women take folic acid even before they're pregnant to make sure that they have proper amounts of folic acid in their system for neural tube development. Okay, I mentioned some infectious agents that are teratogenic. We refer to this TORCH. We use that acronym. So toxoplasmosis. O is for others. R is rubella, cytomegalovirus, and herpes. Those are all teratogenic. So if the mother were to develop these during pregnancy, it can cause harm to the developing embryo or fetus. Okay, there's many others. TORCH is just one acronym that we use to remember these particular ones. Okay, last slide. I went over by 13 minutes. I'm sorry. I try to keep it to 2.5 hours. Next week, I think, is really interesting. It's all about blood and coagulation. So another amazing system to start to learn about. So I will see you at the next module.